You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
The following podcast is scheduled for one fall. Coming in at 195 pounds from Studio A, he is the reigning, defending, undisputed host of the Ring of Thunder, Sexy Thor!
Hello, Thunderverse. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode, which was just the conversation Dan and I had with Ashley and Amanda of how to talk to your friend about wrestling. Or at least I hope you enjoyed it about as much as I had fun slapping it all together, which wasn't too bad. But now we are on the road to WrestleMania Backlash. Maybe that could be a future title? I don't know, we'll see. Probably, especially if I'm just like dry out of ideas. But yeah, I don't think I mentioned this on last week's episode. But yeah, the next pay-per-view isn't just Backlash. It's WrestleMania Backlash. And it's going to be on Sunday, May 16th. Which is all well and good because I've got that day off. And also the night before that is going to be the next Impact Plus special pay-per-view, which I believe is called Under Siege, ? Or maybe that's June's pay-per-view. I don't know. Anyways, start with Drew McIntyre defeating Randy Orton and Braun Strowman to become number one contender for the WWE Championship, and he will face Bobby Lashley at Backlash. And of course, it's all full circle because, of course, last year's Backlash, Drew and Bobby faced there too, but this time, or that time, Drew McIntyre was WWE champion, so full circle. And Randy Orton's luck didn't get much better after that because after Riddle was zooming around him on a scooter proposing they form a tag team called RK Bro, Randy challenged him to a match and Riddle won, which is a turn of the downward momentum Riddle has had after he lost the United States Championship to Sheamus and then subsequently got whooped by Bobby Lashley on the Raw after Mania. But it seems Bray Wyatt is way down on his luck after being betrayed by Alexa Bliss at WrestleMania. He had a good old-fashioned Firefly Funhouse with all the puppets and the funhouse restored, and it really seemed like we were getting back to basics, and we haven't seen him since. But I would say that was cool, though, because Raw after Mania and SummerSlam are always like sort of benchmark events as part of the Fiend's timeline, because of course 2019 the Firefly Funhouse debuted on the Raw after Mania, and SummerSlam is when the Fiend made his debut, so we'll see. Who we have seen every week since WrestleMania is Alexa Bliss, who is still running Alexa's Playground, and now she has a new friend, a creepy-ass doll named Lily. But Alexa actually maintains that this wrestling version of Annabelle has been with her whole life, and if Lily didn't like someone, bad things would happen to them. Like this girl who was really mean to Alexa on the playground during recess and wouldn't share any of her ice cream. Even though Alexa doesn't like strawberry ice cream, she pushed the girl off the swing and the girl broke her wrist or her arm or something, and Alexa took her ice cream anyway. Lily didn't like the Fiend, and look what happened to him. Lily doesn't like any of the girls in the Raw locker room, so bad things are going to happen to them. And all this was introduced after Alexa told a story about a girl, her, who was lost for most of her life until the darkness, aka the Fiend, found her, and she found her true self, and then the darkness went away for a while after the Fiend went up in flames, but she was still throwing Hadoukens and kicking ass, and even after she brought the Fiend back, she was wondering if she even needed the darkness in the first place. I guess her answer to herself was no, since she made the Fiend lose. And then the end of both Alexa's Playground segments showed Lily actually come to life and bite at the screen. Now, when I was watching Raw after Mania, I was running a small fever on account of getting my second vaccine shot the day of WrestleMania Night 2. So when I saw this fucking doll bite at the screen, I was fairly certain I was hallucinating and actually having a fever dream. Nope. This is actually a fucking real idea that WWE has brought to life. Honestly, at first I hated it, at least partly because I was bitter about that WrestleMania match. But I'm probably going to end up warming up to it like the Alexa mark I am, whatever. And I don't know what that says about me, except the previously mentioned fact that I'm just a fucking Alexa mark. I don't know. I also have no idea where we go from here. I thought we might be getting The Fiend versus Randy Orton one more time at Backlash, but I think they're actually done, which would be a shame. Maybe The Fiend versus Alexa Bliss? That would just be weird, but alright. I don't think anything's going to happen at Backlash as far as both of those characters are concerned. I think, and I hope this will just be a slow burn throughout the summer, just like the Randy Orton story was, and The Fiend makes a true comeback at SummerSlam, roughly around the 2-year anniversary he straight killed Finn Balor. Ditto for Alexa. Hopefully she's in the title picture by then. Because right now and for the foreseeable future, pretty much, it's just Rhea Ripley, Asuka, and Charlotte Flair. Charlotte's gone super nuts and gotten herself suspended indefinitely in kayfabe and fined 100,000 kayfabe dollars for attacking a referee. This was all to write her off for a while so she could get dental work done. And she has major heat with Dave Meltzer because not only did he report on it, but he commented about how WWE makes women self-conscious of their appearance, of which she had a scathing tweet about how he could have just called her and she would have given him the straight facts about the how and the why and all that, instead of him just speculating like that, and said Dave can go to hell. Meltzer does have a history of commenting on women's bodies in wrestling unnecessarily, so there you go. It might be some kind of professional suicide to say this, but I've never really been a fan of Dave Meltzer, and definitely not Jim Cornette. I don't like to sling shit, whether it be in podcast form and definitely not on social media, but it's just how I feel. And that's just where I cut it off because I know there's probably going to be some documentary later down the line about Meltzer or Cornette and spinning their shitty-ass comments of saying how, they were renegades or rebels just speaking the truth even when the wrestling establishment didn't want them to or whatever. It's just like, no, they just says shitty fucking things and sometimes have sketchy ass sources that's not even close. I mean, if anything, so I'm not trying to further fuel that fire, but also because I want them to say that about me, because I do have some opinions, like Attitude Era wasn't all it's cracked up to be. Cough, 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 cough. I mean, of course, I was affected by the Attitude Era and was enthralled by the major stars in there like Stone Cold, The Rock, Undertaker, Kane, D-Generation X, all that. But so, of course, I appreciate them because even somebody a kid who had never watched a single episode of Raw absolutely knew who the fuck these guys were. But upon further review of the Attitude Era and all that, I'm just like, yeah, I mean, aside from your major stars and their storylines, like, there was a whole lot of shit. Like, that's just what it is. And people just appreciate it because it was when they were younger and there was blood and boobs and language and some creepy ass commentary sometime. That's just the truth of what it is. And WCW in the late 90s, just pretty much WWE right now. And of course, on the WCW side, I didn't know of Sting and the NWO, and once again was as enthralled with them and thus still recognize that they are timeless characters. Because, I mean, hello, I still fucking see Sting on my television set every Wednesday night, and rightfully so. But, I mean, yeah, again, there was a whole lot of shit that a lot of people just brush to the side because they're just focused on the actual legitimate parts. And yeah, that's a reason why those stars and those Hall of Famers are fucking stars and Hall of Famers. And there's a lot of people we're going to be saying about that, 20 years down the line when we're looking back on what do they call this? Do they call this they call this the PG era. There's going to be guys, probably going to look at Rollins like that. Probably going to end up looking at Reigns like that. Definitely should be looking at the 4 Horsewomen like that. And that's just the truth. Oh, and we definitely need to be looking at Bray Wyatt like that. And of course, still have that pain in our side from all the shitty booking that amazing, amazing performer has gone through. But whatever. A couple young guys who I hope we eventually get to talk about more if their booking can get out of its own way is Mace and T-Bar, because they're like, MVP says they're not working for the Hurt Business, but kind of seems like they are. Because, let me think, Mace and T-Bar attacked Drew McIntyre, and they had a 2-on-1 handicap match. Braun Strowman came to Drew's aid, and then they had a whole tag match, and then Drew and Braun ended up ripping off their masks, so now we can clearly see, in case you didn't already know, that Mace and T-Bar are former Raw commentator until he was F5 by Brock Lesnar through said commentary table, Dio Madden, and Dominic Dijakovic. And of course, commentary is just like, oh yeah, Mace and T-Bar were unmasked. There are a couple guys. Like, are you kidding me? Like, Dio Madden was a commentator on this very show before his place was taken by Samoa Joe, I think, had replaced him. I think. I don't know. But yeah, so even if we're going by this whole thing of, for some reason, NXT isn't recognized as canon by Raw and SmackDown, which is why when Rhea Ripley and Shayna Baszler were facing each other on Raw just a week or two ago, and none of the commentators said shit. Nothing about how Rhea took the NXT Women's Championship off of Shayna almost a year and a half ago. And it's just like, oh yeah, it's Rhea Ripley and Shayna Baszler wrestling. Okay. Just like, come on, man. Maybe a few years ago, the audience was like, okay, there was a little bit of them that tuned into NXT on the WWE network, but mostly the crowd is people watching Raw and SmackDown. I don't really think that's the case anymore in 2021. NXT already got pretty huge by like 2018, 2019 when I started watching, and a lot of people I knew who watched Raw and SmackDown also watched NXT. And now with it being on the USA Network and all that, and also with NXT actually have been part of the Survivor Series war back in 2019. Hello? I think we can recognize NXT as canon finally on fucking Raw and SmackDown television. But, that's just my rant. Just like Index is amazing. What is Index? It is the shipping name of Indy Hartwell and Dexter Lumis. This love story, which has turned out to be fucking hilarious. It is a hilarious wrestling version of Romeo and Juliet. And and it even got more hilarious when Dexter Lumis was having a match with LA Knight, and Indy Hartwell just appeared in the crowd on the opposite side of the plexiglass, and they were just like putting their hands together with the glass in the way and walking with each other, and then Indy tripping a little bit, and then Dexter getting distracted and having LA Knight get the win, and Indy standing on the apron just like puckering her lips and moving in slowly for the kiss like she was in flubbing middle school. Like, it's just hilarious. I haven't seen a lot of negative reaction, but also going on Twitter and seeing like Beth Phoenix actually trying to help her and be of service to, getting her confidence up when shooting her shot with Dexter. That makes it all the more hilarious to me. And we should most definitely be following this love story here on Ring of Thunder because it is just fantastic. What's also kind of fantastic is Kyle O'Reilly now feuding with Cameron Grimes because Cameron offered to manage Kyle and they were calling out anybody in the crowd to be his challenger, and then Kyle was like, "Oh, I think I found him. He's right here." And then he beat the shit out of Grimes. But Kyle's fashion sense. Now, I'm absolutely not a fashionista in any sense of the word, but it's just interesting to me because this time Kyle looked like his best interpretation of Orange Cassidy with a fedora. I was just like, yeesh. Please go back to the Metallica shirt and the denim vest, please. Like, this is something else. But whatever you do, you, Kyle, you're a kick-ass fighter. And your new theme music is actually kind of growing on me a little bit. And this is coming from someone who absolutely loved the Undisputed Era theme song. And I do miss it, so. And apparently this week, speaking of former Undisputed Era members, Adam Cole will be back this week to give his side of things and where he's at. So it'll be interesting to see where Adam Cole goes from there. And by the way, happy 30th birthday to his girlfriend, partner, however you want to use the word, and also now the number one contender for the AEW Women's Championship, Britt Baker, or Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. She looked like she had quite the kick-ass 30th birthday, and she deserves it. And also going back to NXT, Beth Phoenix had a sit-down interview with Io Shirai, and she met Frankie Monet, formerly known as Taya Valkyrie, and Frankie was just like, well, you had a great run, but now, like, it's my time. And she tried to introduce her to her little dog, and Io was like, I'm a cat person. I was just like, and if you couldn't understand what I just said through that sort of gravelly voice that I just did, she said, I'm a cat person. To which I was just like, that's why I wanted Io to stay champion forever. I mean, aside from the fact that she's just an incredible wrestler, but she's a cat person. And then she posted a picture with her cat, and her cat is a black cat. So, yeah. I want Io to be champion of something here within the next 6 months, please. And here we all thought Io was finally about to get called up to Raw or SmackDown, but apparently not. Like, maybe she'll do like one final feud to maybe put over Frankie Monet, and then she goes up to the main roster, kind of like how Rhea like feuded and put over Raquel Gonzalez right before she went to the main roster. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. And the Elite is back in full douchery because Kenny Omega was late to his own press conference with Rich Swann. And when Rich tried to shake his hand afterwards, Kenny just slapped him in the face. And then on Dynamite last week, the Elite got their own trailer. So it was Kenny and Don Callis and the Good Brothers and the Young Bucks all hanging out. And then Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston straight rammed their trailer with a pickup truck. Because Mox and Eddie are badasses. And then they all got into a scrap, and it was awesome. Cannot wait to see where this goes. I mean, between Moxley and Kingston versus the Elite and the Inner Circle versus the Pinnacle at Blood and Guts, which should be, at this point, I want to say in about a week and a half, I think. Because I think the Wednesday after this coming Wednesday should be May 5th. So there's Blood and Guts right there. Oh, yeah. I'm ready. And on SmackDown, okay, since we're kind of recapping 2 SmackDowns from now, say the SmackDown after Mania, Cesaro came out to challenge Roman Reigns, and Roman just blew him off. So last week on SmackDown, Daniel Bryan returned to back Cesaro up. But also on the SmackDown after Mania, Cesaro and Jey Uso had a match in the main event, which was thrown out because Seth attacked Cesaro. And I swear to God, I thought, when I first saw the hair and the beard and all that, I thought Jimmy Uso finally returned. But I was just like, oh, it's Seth Rollins. And then I was just like, wait, why am I sounding disappointed? It's always great to see Seth. So Seth came out again, and he's just not done with Cesaro because he said the rain delay totally threw him off his game. And then, yeah, it ended up being a tag match that he did not want to be in, but somehow, you know, Roman used his tribal chief powers and totally managed to goad him into doing it. And so he and Jey Uso tagged versus Cesaro and Daniel Bryan at the beginning of SmackDown. And after a while, he pretty much went, fuck this, and left Jey to get his ass whooped. But I was all sorts of excited because it's both of the 3-man groups that Roman's been a part of, like, teaming together. It's the Shield and the Bloodline, Seth and Jey, coming together. I was just like, I am so down with this. Even though it's like an entirely different dynamic, and Roman didn't even really acknowledge Seth right there too when they were standing that close in their first on-screen interaction since Royal Rumble 2020, when Roman was still babyface big dog and Seth was the Messiah, and he held out his fist trying to reunite those old Shield ties, and then Roman hit him with a Superman punch. It's just like, damn. Roman and Seth on screen that close. And I mean, of course, like we have already definitely previously stated, Jon Moxley is on AEW. So, I mean, you can't really, start speculating, oh my God, is the Shield going to reunite again? But I mean, if we have Roman and Seth working together, that's good enough for me. That's good enough for me. And also, so right before WrestleMania, Roman didn't release the shirt, but WWE Shop released the shirt, but you might as well say Roman released the shirt. That just said, acknowledge me, and on the back it had his accolades, like, and his different names, like Tribal Chief, Head of the Table, End All Be All, the Best of the Best, 4-time WrestleMania main eventer, the reigning defending undisputed Universal Champion, all that good stuff. Well, now he's already come out with another shirt, which says, smash 'em, stack 'em, pin 'em, that whole catchphrase that he used, like before, during, and after WrestleMania, of when he was telling us what he was going to do to Edge and Daniel Bryan. Well, now that shirt form, it says smash 'em, stack 'em, pin 'em, and then there's a drawing of Roman actually pinning Daniel Bryan and Edge. I'm just like, damn it. I was trying to not get the shirt because I already have way too many shirts. But it's just like, I gotta get that one. I've got to. And Kevin Owens had an Intercontinental Championship match with Apollo Crews, and he and Big E had an exchange beforehand in which E called him a habitual line cutter. And it's a pretty interesting thing to see, the two major baby faces having heat because, of course, 2 years ago, Kevin Owens turned heel on the New Day. And also, Kevin Owens was inserted into the WWE Championship match against Daniel Bryan at Fastlane ahead of WrestleMania 35 during Kofi Mania. So there's still a whole lot of heat there between Kevin Owens and the New Day members, even 2 years later. And it's like, that's interesting because you don't usually see baby faces having heat with each other on screen, and they're just usually once they turn face again, everybody's just cool with, or most everybody who is also babyface is usually just cool with them, nothing ever happened. But no, even though Kevin Owens and Big E are two major baby faces here on SmackDown, they still have heat over stuff that happened 2 years ago. The New Day never forgets. That's something E should say. Write that down, E, if you're listening. Also, thank you for listening. But yeah, during the match with KO and Apollo, Commander Aziz, which is what Dabba-Kato is called now, caused a distraction and got KO rolled up. And then Aziz hit the Nigerian nail on Kevin Owens, which is from an old move that Umaga used to do, which I think it used to be called the Samoan Spike. And then Sami Zayn danced around Kevin Owens' crumpled body, and I laughed way harder than I probably should have. But it's just such an amazing dance move, and it's even funnier, like, out of context. Just watch it, him dancing to Apollo's theme song, and it's amazing. And then at the very end, Roman challenged Daniel Bryan to a Universal Championship match for this coming SmackDown. And if Daniel Bryan leaves, he has to leave SmackDown. So I don't know if he's retiring, being taken off TV entirely, or if he's just going to move to Raw or NXT. I doubt NXT, but if he was moved to NXT, there's a lot of cool stuff he could do there. But when I thought about him moving to Raw, I was just like, Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus for the United States Championship. Sign me up for that. Also, Daniel Bryan versus Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship. Absolutely sign me up for that. So, yeah. And I think, I don't want to say he's run his course on SmackDown because it sounds like Daniel Bryan's just getting old and tired with his character and his story being on there, which he's absolutely not. But it's just like, it'd be cool to see him go to Raw and do it on there. And actually for me, because as we have well established on the show, I started watching consistently and following WWE consistently since 2018. And so the whole time I've been watching, Daniel Bryan's been on SmackDown. So to see him go back to Raw for the first time as a fan, like, that would be neat. New change of scenery. And again, him versus Sheamus, him versus Lashley, I'm definitely all right with that. And if for old time's sake, and I know this feud is might still be fairly tired, but if we do revisit Daniel Bryan versus The Miz, which is probably still not a very popular notion, I don't think I would hate that too much either, but just don't drag it out. Like, maybe just make it a month-long feud. But we're heading to commercial now. When we get back, we're going to talk about Impact Rebellion.
The kid and I have flown from one side of the galaxy to the other. We've been listening to a lot of strange podcasts, but the Monster Sci-Fi Show stands above the rest. Isn't that right, Grogu? I still hate that name.
The Monster Sci-Fi Show is part of the ESO network. It's sci-fi from a certain point of view.
My name is Mark McCray, and I'm the author of The Best Saturdays of Our Lives.
I'm Dan Klink, co-host of the Best Saturdays of Our Lives podcast.
The Best Saturdays of Our Lives features programming trends from the 1966 television season all the way through the last hurrah of the early digital age of the 1990s.
On the show, if it's animated, we talk about it.
Order your signed copy today at tbsool.com.
And listen to the podcast at esonetwork.com and all podcast platforms.
Hello. Have you ever wondered how much Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster sold Superman's rights to DC for? Or which popular football star was the Sam Wilson the Falcons' physical appearance based on? You can find all that and more at the History of Comic Books podcast, a podcast dedicated to the creators, events, history, and the companies that made the great comic book medium. Hosted and created by your friendly neighborhood JT Wheatley. Please give it a listen at iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, and all our podcasting platforms. Thank you, and go ahead and enjoy yourself a good comic book.
Hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals.
It's Amanda Bones.
And I'm Ashley.
Of How to Talk to Your Friend About Wrestling, the podcast on the Count Out Wrestling Podcast Network, a weekly show where we talk about all of our favorite things, babes, blood, and brutality.
We also talk about other fun things, like is Kenny Omega finally too tan? And how much blood is too much blood? Because that looks like way too much blood.
So join us on the adventure of teaching me, Amanda Bones, about wrestling.
Look, we gotta talk.
Yeah, Thunder Talk.
We're going all kinds of sideways with that sweet nerd junk.
Woke nerd junk.
It's topical.
Political.
Dare I say radical.
We've got all your latest news and reviews.
Hot music.
And a whole lot of comedy.
But it ain't for kids.
Definitely mature content.
So let's talk.
Let's talk Thunder Talk.
Thunder Talk is a proud member of the ESO network.
And now here we are at Impact's Rebellion pay-per-view. And this one is a little bit special for me because it was the first pay-per-view of Impact that I ever watched. So it's got the little specialness that Extreme Rules does for me in WWE and Revolution does for AEW. Because, yeah, so that pretty much makes this just about a year since we started talking about Impact here on Ring of Thunder. So, yeah, nice. Happy anniversary for that, I guess. And start out with Josh Alexander defeating TJP and Ace Austin to become new X Division champion. Violent by Design defeated Willie Mack, Eddie Edwards, Chris Sabin, and James Storm. And Eric Young introduced his replacement, W. Morrissey, a.k.a. Big Cass, or Cass XL, who hasn't been seen in any major companies in quite a while, because he used to be Big Cass with Enzo in WWE. Oh, I know you definitely remember them if you had been watching WWE a few years ago. And actually, it was funny because I was just reading an article earlier that day about how Cass would be open to coming back to WWE or going to AEW or Impact or Japan, wherever he can. And now he's at Impact, so good on him. And he's paired with a hell of a group in Violent by Design with some real strong veterans like Eric Young and Rhino. So, hey, I can't hate. Good on you, man. And then Brian Myers defeated Matt Cardona. And, it's just unfortunate that, 90-day no-compete clauses are a thing, because it'd be interesting if they could, have brought in Chelsea Green, almost immediately to, get some sort of interference or something in this storyline. But alas. And actually, speaking of the 90-day clauses and all that, when Impact was advertising the Impact Plus specials for May and June, they also showed a little teaser for Slammiversary in July and showed clips of Samoa Joe and Chelsea Green, who, of course, Samoa Joe is pretty much a damn near TNA/Impact legend, and Chelsea Green was also a very important person in the Knockouts division. So, yeah, it'll be super interesting to see who comes back at Slammiversary this year and see if it can top last year's Slammiversary, which definitely still had major ramifications for Impact even today. So, sometimes even though my patience doesn't want to wait for long-term storytelling, I gotta admit it always, or at least mostly, seems to pay off. I mean, except for The Fiend, Randy Orton at WrestleMania. That was kind of, but you're not gonna win them all. But moving on, Jordynne Grace and Rachel Ellering, who had made her Impact debut, helping out Jordan from being attacked on Impact Television a couple of days earlier. And she is the daughter of Paul Ellering, the former manager of the Road Warriors and the first manager of Authors of Pain back when they were on NXT. And she had been in NXT for a very short time, and then she went to AEW for a little bit, did some matches there, and now she's here on Impact. And they defeated Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz to become the new Knockouts Tag Team Champions. So we're already this far into the pay-per-view, and we already have 2 new champions. Then Trey Miguel defeated Sami Callihan in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Finn Juice defeated the Good Brothers to retain the Impact Tag Team Championship. Deonna Purrazzo defeated Tennille Dashwood to retain the Knockouts Championship thanks to interference from her buds Susan and Kimberly. And the 3 of them were beating up on Tennille afterwards when former Knockouts champion and inaugural Knockouts Tag Team co-champion Taylor Wilde, who Impact had been teasing for weeks now would be making her return, made her return to the Impact Zone and chased off the champ and her friends. And finally, in our main event, which was called by Mauro Ranallo, along with D'Lo and Matt Striker. And man, did I miss Mauro Ranallo ever since he left NXT. I just love that man and his voice and his pop culture references. This man is truly a gem, and any claim to the otherwise is false here in the Thunderverse. But, of course, Kenny Omega defeated Rich Swann to become the new unified Impact World Champion, along with still being AEW World Champion and AAA Mega Champion. It's hilarious, though, that Tony Khan and Tony Schiavone are being heels here on Kenny's side, when on the paid ads from AEW and on Dynamite, they've been like, Kenny stole the championship from Jon Moxley, fuck him and fuck Don Callis. But Aubrey Edwards was brought in as a ref representing AEW to help keep it fair because Tony Khan didn't trust Impact ref Brian Hebner because of his last name, because of course his father Earl was the ref during the Montreal Screwjob. But Aubrey was still fair and consistent because after Hebner got hit with a cutter accidentally, she wouldn't let Kenny hit Rich Swann with a chair. I mean, she's just the fucking best. Listen to her on the AEW Unrestricted podcast with Tony Schiavone. She's fucking hilarious. They both are, really. Actually, she was also a former game developer and is helping with AEW games and the creation of their upcoming products. And I think she might have had a hand on the casino game that's already out. That's it for Rebellion, and lots of good extra stuff on TV you should watch. Like Sunday, the WWE 24 episode for The Miz came out, and I mean, I already knew he was a guy who worked his ass off, but still, like, if you don't already respect him and his work ethic, then, you know, this documentary might convince you otherwise. I mean, I don't know. There's just some people who are just spiteful and jealous, and even after watching that, they're still just like, fuck the Miz, little reality star. It's like, the man worked his ass off for 15 years, and he earned everything he's got. You know, whether he deserves it or not, well, yes, he does deserve it, but if you want to throw out, he was just a reality star, so he doesn't deserve it. Well, you know what? We don't all get what we deserve, but we do get what we earn. So The Miz has earned his 15-year WWE career, which includes being a 2-time Grand Slam champion, amongst other accolades, and also being in movies, even though they're just the Marine sequels. Still, to just make a movie in any capacity is still a hell of an achievement. And also, of course, Ms. and Mrs., the reality show, which is like the only reality show I still only watch, and it is fucking hilarious and amazing. And of course, being the host of Wipeout and all that, like, the man works his ass off. He has a beautiful wife. He has a great family. Yeah, he's got like a $6 million home in Los Angeles, I believe. Like, give the man his fucking props already. Doesn't even fucking matter if he came from real world, road rules, road world, real, whatever. Insert 90s MTV reality show here. It doesn't matter. He earned what he got right now. It doesn't matter where he came from. And also the other little bit of extra programming you should watch is the new episode of the A&E biography miniseries where they spotlight different WWE legends. This one is Rowdy Roddy Piper. And of course I knew of him. I'd known what he'd done in WWE, but I didn't know the full story behind the man, and I don't think I ever realized, or maybe I just forgot, that he was the main dude in John Carpenter's They Live. And I know I definitely didn't know that he was the one that actually coined the phrase, "I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum." I swear, I'm admitting that right here on Thunderverse airwaves. Did not know that was him that coined that, so good on him. And with all that, that's the 1, 2, 3. Thanks for locking up with me in the Ring of Thunder. Kick butts, not nuts. And in honor of the rowdy one, just when you think you have all the answers, I change the questions.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.